Next up, we have Raoul Lumb giving us a state of the nation on the legal framework behind crypto. Thank you, Raoul.
Well, thank you. Look, I know even before I was introduced as a nascent celebrity that this was the bit of the evening that everybody was really excited about. God, they said they've got a lawyer on to talk about the law stuff. This is going to be incredible. Don't worry, I have that effect on audiences a lot. Look, I thought I would continue actually with the trend of myth-busting ever so slightly. So I thought I would simply run through a series of legal myths that people tell me about blockchain technology all the time. The first thing I hear from an awful lot of people who come into the office with blockchain technology, and they've been saying this for at least sort of 3 or 4 years as people have sort of gradually come in with more and more of this stuff, is that there's no such thing as law that regulates or deals with blockchain technology or whatever kind of crypto widget or token you want to put in a blockchain. Absolutely not true. Just because the lawyers that you were speaking to were clueless about this stuff when you first walked in the door doesn't mean that we lawyers aren't going to get out our existing box of tricks and use that to try and regulate and deal with whatever crazy new invention technologists have dreamed up this week. We've been doing it for years. We're like cockroaches. We're not going away anytime soon. So we have a series of existing legal concepts. The second myth is that these legal concepts are particularly good for your new invention, crypto technology. So my favourite thing about UK law at the moment, well, English and Welsh law, I suppose, if you want to be really technical about it, and I'm a pedant, so I do. The thing about it is that we don't really have any concept in English law that lets you own a crypto asset. So, for example, a Bitcoin or any other token that you care to put in a blockchain. UK law was always wonderful. We had physical objects that you could own. So if you give me a bunch of metal coins, well, of course, we've got laws that say you can have property in the physical metal coins. Of course I can. We later then said, well, hang on, it's not really, now that we're not making these coins out of gold anymore, we need a slightly more sophisticated concept for this stuff, because I don't really own the pound coin, do I? I know the Bank of England owns that, and what I own really is the value of a pound that the bank underwrites. So what I have in pound coins is what's called a chosen action, which is a promise from somebody to pay me something, which isn't really a contract. That's all you need to know. It baffles most law students, so let's all just forget about it. Baffled me back in the day. With Bitcoin, with crypto widgets, we don't really have that. These are not promises by anybody to pay or give you any particular thing. There is no bank of Bitcoin, for example, underwriting the value I have in my Bitcoin. No, it's simply something that I can transfer to other people. And I can do that as if it was a metal coin in my pocket, but it's not a metal coin in my pocket. And thus we don't have any kind of legal concept that recognizes what this thing is and says that you can physically own it. So good luck suing somebody for your Bitcoins back or whatever other crypto widgets, because we simply don't have a concept of property that can attach to them. What we do have, which leads me on delightfully to CryptoKitties, because how could anybody not talk about it this week, is that you can own all of the legal rights that come attached to crypto products. So if, for example, you go to distributed ledger technology vendors and you get a license to use their product, you'll have all of the usual rights you get under a software license, and it will be your rights in the product that you sue on and that you have value in. Likewise, if your tokens that you buy come attached to some other asset, so for example, a unique drawing of a cat, which people will spend an incredible amount of money to buy, and that really does baffle me, that, for example, you can own the IP in your CryptoKitty. So while I might not be able to sue somebody for my Bitcoins back, I could almost certainly sue them for stealing my CryptoKitties. Crazy, but true. I don't write these rules, I just apply them, I assure you. Fine. The other thing that people ask me about all the time is ICOs. They say, Raoul, what are the rules on ICOs? These things aren't regulated by the FCA, so surely there must be no rules at all, right? And I can just go off and make my cool $50 million by the weekend. No, chaps, no. Because, of course, there's a whole load of rules, and I'm sure people have been lectured about this before, that apply to offers you make to people in the UK, especially where those offers are financial in flavour. So there are an awful lot of services you can't offer people without a very particular licence from the FCA. So, for example, offering people a share in the revenues of a company in the future, offering people rights to dictate how the company does business, those kind of things. We cannot attach these to crypto tokens and simply offer them to the general public. If we're doing that, we would essentially be engaging in the business of stockbroking. And if there's one thing that the FCA does not like people doing, it's undercutting stockbrokers without a license. So you've got to have a license for that, is one thing. The other thing is how you describe your tokens. An awful lot of people come to me and they say, I've got a wonderful blockchain product, I want to do an ICO, and what I have is a service token. All that the token does is let you move things around a software system, and there's absolutely no financial service or regulated activity involved. Wonderful, I say. No need for an FCA license for you. You can go make your money as fast as you like. And then they asked me to read the white paper. And please do, if you're having an ICO, get a lawyer to read the white paper. And my hair stands on end because, of course, the white paper describes this as an incredible investment for anybody, an amazing money-making opportunity. If you will just buy these tokens, you too can be rich as Croesus by the weekend, just like the founder. We can't say that to the general public. There are a series of things we must not say about businesses that we're trying to raise money for, and about options or tokens, anything it is, that we're holding out to them, about their quality as an investment. Either you have to tone those promises down, or you have to risk the FCA reading your white paper and coming and feeling your collar, as they say in the trade. That stuff's regulated too. Can we expect more regulation in the future? Hands up if you're expecting less regulation of blockchain. Yeah, that's what I thought. And no, it's what we thought too, because if anything, law is always a growth industry. So the regulators, you may have seen in Singapore last month, they decided that they would get onto this stuff. Singaporean financial services regulator came out with a set of formalised rules saying, hey chaps, look, if you're going to make certain promises about crypto assets, then you'll need to be regulated. And if your crypto assets are going to come with certain rights, you'll need to be regulated. Well, so far so good. That's not a real deviation from the UK position. Europe came out with some very helpful guidance 2 weeks ago. It said, look, chaps, we've noticed that you're selling these crypto assets for an immense amount of money. Dear consumers, they're really volatile, so think about that. And the guidance ended, which I thought was really helpful. And then it said, look, you chaps selling these crypto assets, we've noticed you're making a load of money off it. And don't forget that there might well be regulations in your local member state. So if you'll kindly obey those, that'd be wonderful. And then the guidance ended again. And I was left none the wiser about what the European Union intended to do. What I am slightly wiser about is what the UK Financial Conduct Authority wants to do. They've already gone into consultation stage. It's fascinating stuff. You can read what people are saying to them about what they think the future of crypto regulation should be. And as you can imagine, half of that is written by the big banks and half of that is written by crypto evangelists. And remarkably, they seem to have two incredibly different views of the way that the industry should go. They're baffling, just irreconcilable. And who do we think the FCA will listen to? I just don't know. Anyway, so I think you can expect a lot more regulation of ICOs in particular in the future. And I think you will see, maybe by the end of 2018, maybe by 2019, ever more regulation, quite likely EU-led, about how they see cryptocurrencies in particular and other blockchain assets integrating more, what's the word I'm looking for, more fluidly with existing traditional financial services systems. What you have at the moment is an awful lot of companies like Microsoft and all the others listed in the slides earlier who will take Bitcoin as a payment. You don't see a lot of ways of integrating those payments with traditional payment systems, and in particular with things like anti-money laundering and know your client checks. Expect an awful lot of regulation coming in the same way that we had the e-money directives once upon a time, which seem dreadfully old hat now, but were really revolutionary when they came in, which will tell us how we must order our chain products in order to make sure that they aren't subverting what governments like to think is very careful, know your client, anti-money laundering procedures to stop awful people doing things like offshoring their money to Panama, which we know the current system doesn't allow for at all. Expect that in 2018, 2019 by the latest, there's going to be much more regulation of this stuff. And if you thought that you could somehow chip lawyers away from the glorious business of investment and making money, I regret to inform you that you're wrong. Does anybody have any questions?
What country do you think has the best policy for ICOs at the moment?
I ought to say I'm a neutral when I sit on the panel later, so I'm neither evangelist nor doomsayer for this stuff. Ever so slightly depends. I am impressed by the UK, if I'm honest, in that we've been very permissive about it, and I suspect that our regulation in the future will be permissive. Singapore impresses me simply because it's the first financial services regulator, and really this is a financial services question, which is dared to put essentially its cards on the table. So A, top marks for Singapore, B, top marks for the UK for being permissive so far in a way that I think several other EU member states are not. Less points for China, which I think is, you might say, unduly conservative about the possibilities for blockchain. And well done to the United States for allowing, finally, publicly traded financial services assets. And I know that I'm breaking all the rules when I talk about the price of Bitcoin, but we've all seen today Chicago commodities exchanges have allowed public trading of products and derivatives which pertain to Bitcoin prices and which theoretically could pertain to other blockchain assets. That's forward-thinking stuff, but it's not quite so forward-thinking as you imagine, in that you've already been able to buy derivative products for blockchains here in the UK. It's just they haven't been listed on any of the major exchanges yet.
Hi. For example, if any government or any country tries to stop Bitcoin, legally or physically, is that possible?
I know that people want me to say, no, not at all, don't you worry. One of the most frequent, I was going to use the word pernicious, maybe that would have been unfair, inquiries I've had over the last couple of years have been people coming into the office and saying, hey Raoul, you're my lawyer, I've got this great wheeze. What I want to do is move gambling services onto a blockchain, and then I won't need to apply for a gambling service, right, or pay gambling tax, because it'll all be distributed and the gambling commission won't be able to come and track me down and throw me in jail for offering an unlicensed gambling service. And I've always said to people that simply isn't the case. It might be difficult for them to find you, but find you they most certainly will if they think that you are in any way attempting to usurp them. We've seen that China has managed to essentially lock down ICOs to a degree. I think don't underestimate what central banks and indeed central policing systems can do if they really, really want to expunge something from white markets in a country. Can we ever get rid of something like Bitcoin for black markets? Maybe even the darkest of grey markets, certainly not. The ingenuity of criminals is amazing. I think my favourite story is about drug dealers using shipping containers full of old video cassettes by way of currency IOUs that they were moving around ports. Port authorities kept opening these things up and going, what on earth is moving these enormous containers full of videotapes around, and why are they doing it? And it turned out that it was essentially simply a unit of payment so that drug dealers would be able to have a chip that they held saying, X-drug dealer will owe me Y money in the future. People will keep doing that with Bitcoin, but I think don't underestimate the power of central government to move anything it likes out of white markets if it chooses to do so.
Thank you very much, Raoul.